Hello, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the talk with Gabriela Salgado. She will talk about the second Thessaloniki Biennale in Greece, and she will talk about the program and the project itself. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming at this very late stage of the art fair that is about to close. I want to talk about the project that I just opened in Thessaloniki with two other curators, the Thessaloniki Biennale, the second Thessaloniki Biennale. Thessaloniki, I don't know if you know, is the second city of Greece. Greece is a very small country with two biennales, and if we take that as an example of the overpopulation of biennales around the world, which is, quite a phenomenon these days, is quite significant that such a country has two biennales, and they are actually concurrent because the Athens Biennale is opening next week, and our Biennale opened 2 weeks ago. But in any case, this Biennale, which is very young, was this time organized by the State Museum of Contemporary Art, the State Museum of Art, the Center of Contemporary Art, and the Ministry of Culture of Greece. And they invited 3 curators to organize it. B.C. Silva, who is the director of the Center of Contemporary Art in Lagos, Nigeria, Tsirago Tsiara, who is the director of the Center of Contemporary Art in Thessaloniki, a Greek curator, and myself. I work as an independent curator and also as a curator of public programs at Tate Modern in London, where I'm based. So, given that the city has an incredible historical legacy, especially in architecture, because it was 500 years part of the Ottoman Empire, the venues that we had the privilege to work in were incredible buildings. Among them, this is a list of the venues we worked in. Some industrial venues in the port. The Thessaloniki is a port city, so the sea is extremely important, and we wanted to be close to the water with the exhibition. So there are a number of venues you will see in the images from the port, and also Ottoman buildings from the 15th century, precisely Turkish baths, 2 of them, and one of them is a market that the Turkish set up very close to the main mosque in the 15th century. We also used a bookshop as a gallery space and a museum of religion in the center of town, which was also very symbolic for us, working around ideas of how religion has an impact in contemporary culture. Other venues were the Archaeological Museum, the Museum of Byzantine Art, and a bar and restaurant that shows a video projection. This is an image of the opening night in the port. We opened the Biennale with a performance by Matt For Real, who are 2 artists from China who settled in England in the 1980s, at the end of 1980s, after coming out of art school. They were part of a very important group of performance in Beijing called Concept 21 in the 80s. Performance was very, very strong in China at the time when making art was extremely difficult in terms of material scarcity, but also because of political reasons. So performance was a very used medium to convey ideas. Matt For Real presented this performance that had to do, it's called Struggle, Criticism and Reform. And it was a performance about how that recreated this idea of public judgment of individuals during the height of the Cultural Revolution in the 60s, when individuals were mistreated publicly for their capitalist ideas or the bourgeois tendencies. So what they did was, you can see the sequence. Unfortunately, I'm not showing the video, but they exposed themselves to public criticism in the form of people throwing soya sauce and ketchup at them. At the end, they wrote the word revolution with ketchup on the wall. The port venue, Warehouse C, had the main exhibition of the Biennale. This is work by Hugh Locke from the UK. It's called Kingdom of the Blind, and is a multimedia installation which has is composed of elements that he buys in pawn shops, really cheap materials like plastic necklaces and dolls. And it represents ideas of power. They are huge warriors made of all these materials, very glittery, very threatening figures. In the same venue, Alexandra Rechea from Cuba presented videos and drawings. This is another work by Alexandra Rechea in a bar restaurant, it was a wrecking ball. It was an animation of the wrecking ball, and we decided to project it on this wall because it was a Byzantine wall, part of the original Byzantine wall that protected the city at the time of the invasion of the Ottomans in the early 14th century. This is work of Samba Fall from Senegal about representations of Africa, what Africa means to people from outside Africa. So there's one negative and one positive map of Africa made by people of Thessaloniki with an alphabet constructed by the artist. So people had to construct words to explain, to tell what their ideas about Africa were. And incredibly enough, in all the countries that he visits with this particular piece, the negative map of Africa is done in seconds, when the other one, the positive one, takes a long time, because people have very few ideas, positive ideas about Africa, but many negative ideas that they take from the media representation of Africa. The show was extremely international. You can imagine that we were 3 curators from different locations with an expertise in different areas of the world. My work has been many years devoted to the work of Latin America, because I'm Latin American. And B.C. Silva is based in Nigeria and has extensive knowledge of African art. And the curator from Thessaloniki has a very strong interest and connection with the Balkans and Central Europe and Eastern Europe. So all that could be seen through the show. There was like a different cartography for this exhibition that had to do with the location of Thessaloniki in Europe, and also with the fact that populations move, and we have a truly, I wouldn't use that word that was used today, multicultural, which is very confusing, but a diverse world that we live in. And artists are basically representing that, because they, you know, you see these names. Kaderatia is of Algerian origin, for instance, but he represents the Middle East in international exhibitions, but he's French. So all these ambivalent identity question of where artists come from was, of course, part of the exhibition, because you can't escape it in any contemporary art show now. This is the work of Mircea Cantor from Romania. It's a flying carpet made of warplanes and angels woven in the Afghani style. This is another work by Mircea Cantor. This is the work of Chen Xi from China. This is a view of the warehouse with the work of Juan Chong from China. In the end, is an animation work called The Book of the Seas and Mountains. And on the sides, Mauro Pinto from Mozambique with photographs of the port of Maputo. Again, the idea of ports and movements and transport was very present in the work of Emeka Okereke from Nigeria. We used the port, the outside of the port, as an exhibition space as well, and these images were blown up and printed on vinyl to be, during the whole show, to be in the outdoors. The show will finish on the 27th of September. A project that I was interested in doing was when I was thinking of a public art project. The notion of public art in a situation, in a Biennale situation, is quite strange, because you see curators coming from different countries into a new city they don't know, and artists who don't know the city have to work for that city. And what does that mean in such a short period of time? It could become really irrelevant for the people who live in the city. So what we did is to commission Neil Bromwich and So Walker from the UK to bring their boat, the Celeste, with the project Celestial Radio that they had done for England, and present it in the context of Thessaloniki by creating a radio program. So they made this radio program by interviewing people from different fields of expertise and students, people from the city, asking them questions about the past and the present of the city. So we had historians talking about the Ottoman past in the city, which is very invisible. I mean, you can see the buildings, the remnants, and also the impact that the culture had in the way that people eat and the words they use in their language that are mixed with Greek. But the presence of the Islamic culture of the past is quite suppressed, as well as the Jewish presence, which is very important in the city as well. They had different periods of supremacy, these groups. And we wanted to bring all that to the present by asking historians and experts to talk about this legacy. So the Celestial Radio project was instrumental in bringing these voices. The project exists in a blog, celestialradio.org, and it can be listened to. So it's something that has survived the presence of the boat, which was there only for a couple of weeks. We used the boat as a venue, so we had interviews with artists. We broadcasted from the boat. The boat is covered in mirror tiles, 6,000-inch square mirror tiles, so it reflects the environment. It's a very beautiful boat, silver. This is the kiosk that we created at the entrance of the warehouse to let people not hire for money, but just to borrow these MP3 players with headphones so they can listen to the program while they walk along the coast. And they can recognize the buildings and the history of the city by listening to the program. Bazaar Hammam was one of the most beautiful venues we worked in. This was the actual pool of the hammam. Hammam, it's Arabic old ancient name to designate baths. So this is the place near the mosque where people would go to clean up before going to mosque to pray. We used this venue to show the work of Colombian artist Osvaldo Maciá, who is based in the UK, whose work is mainly for other senses, not for the eyes. So they're not visual works, but they're works for smell and for the ears. And in this case, it was an olfactory piece that we premiered in Thessaloniki. And it had to do with a collection he was collecting for a number of years, the smells of people around the world. And the way he did this was to go to communities that had ways of living that were contaminated with chemicals, like, for instance, indigenous people, the Maasai people of Kenya, people from Tierra del Fuego in southern Argentina, people from Aymara communities in Bolivia. He collected pieces of hair of people, women, who had not dyed their hair or used any shampoos or any chemicals to wash. So the smells that he collected in the hair, you know that the hair is a very important archive of the body, because it contains not only your genetic history, but also the way of living of each person, what we eat, if we smoke, if we drink, if we take drugs, if we smell things and touch things, everything is collected in the hair. So what he did was to take these samples of hair to a perfumier in Paris and synthesize the smell and create a perfume of each person. And those perfumes were placed in these curtains that went up and down. So you could smell individuals when the curtain went up and down. It was a very strong piece because the smell wasn't like perfume. It was like strong human smell. And they were all different. So he called these 10 notes for a human symphony. And many people found it quite unbearable, actually. Didn't want to stay in the space, including me. I found it quite strong. This is another view of the piece. Very beautiful association. We had the opportunity to work with smell in a place that was built for cleansing. So it was very important association that we were privileged to use. The Besesten is another old Arab name for market that was also very close to the mosque and the baths in the center of Thessaloniki. And we use this, the upper part, the first floor of the market is an exhibition space, and downstairs you have a market, and you have print workshops, and you have people selling fabric, and human activity is very intense. But in the upper floor, we had exhibitions, and I placed the work of Mexican artist Cesar Martinez, who is also a performance artist and was doing performance in the concurrent festival of performance in Thessaloniki. These were inflatable sculptures made of rubber and powered by hair dryers on a timer, so they were deflating and inflating constantly. This is another warehouse where we had the work of Argentinian painter Magdalena Dietrich. The interest in choosing this work was to do with the fact that Thessaloniki has the most important collection of constructivist art, Russian constructivist art, in the State Museum, the Kostakis collection, that was donated to the museum by George Kostakis, who was, amazing enough, the driver of the ambassador of Greece in Moscow during the revolution of 1917 and after that. And what happened was that when the constructivist movement was underrated by communist ideology as a parasite bourgeois art for being abstract, he started collecting as a driver with a very modest salary. He started buying from Popova, Rodchenko, even Tatlin, Malevich, pieces of art that would have been lost under communism. And he collected these pieces, and then when he retired and went back to Thessaloniki, his mother town, he sold the collection to the museum. So this is the repository of constructivist art, most important in the world is in Thessaloniki. And this artist from Argentina, who is of Central European origin, again, the migrations are very evident here. She paints in a style that reminds that movement. And she also pays homage to figurative Russian art of the communist period. So both worlds were represented in this exhibition. Jens Henning, an artist from Denmark, works in very ephemeral ways. He chose to do a project for the Biennale that was to bring pigeons from Albania across the border in his car. Very problematic because you can't bring animals from country to country, so we had a lot of issues with that. But in the end, he brought the pigeons and he released them in the main square of Thessaloniki, in Aristotelos Square, and the pigeons mingle with each other, so there was no problem of, you know, xenophobia among the among the pigeons. He released the pigeons, and then what very ephemeral action. He showed this mini installation of the boxes where the pigeons left their traces, and just the signs that he put all around the city, posters saying Albanian pigeons came to Thessaloniki. Of course, it has a very strong political connotation because Albanians went to Thessaloniki at the end of the communist regime in masses as workers, and there was quite a lot of rejection for Albanian immigrants in Greece. So there is a comment there about migration. These are the boxes where the pigeons were brought in. The work of Paolo Chiasera from Italy. The work of Bright Eke, Nigeria. Sorry, I have to run through because we don't have much time. Please interrupt me anytime. This is not a lecture, so if you have any question about any artist, just do it now. It'll be too late in 10 minutes. We'll finish soon. Bright Eke from Nigeria again. Archaeological Museum is an important landmark of the city. It has a lot of sculptures of the period of Alexander the Great, who is the biggest national hero in Macedonia, especially in Thessaloniki. This is the work of Mexican artist Maria Escurra, who works with textiles. In this case, she made a huge installation for the atrium of the museum with women's tights. one of the intentions of that I had with my curatorial input in the Biennale was to bring the figures of history from countries outside the mainstream, because art history, as we all know, is written by Europeans and North Americans, and so far the parallel histories of avant-garde in other regions of the world seems invisible. Contemporary art is another matter. Contemporary art travels. We see artists from all over the world now, but this is the work of Carlos Cruz Diez, who is one of the masters of kineticism in Venezuela, a very strong movement in the 1970s that explored audience interaction with the works. You have a very good example of this movement in the art fair now with the work of Jesus Soto. These boxes, kinetic boxes that you see through with lines of color. These artists were fundamental in investigating the vibration of color by proximity. So what we did here is, I had done this work before with him. He's an artist who is now 85, and he's still making these chromatic works that are extremely contemporary. So the idea was to link contemporary art with historical art and put it together in a context that could pay homage to these figures of history that are somehow unknown. Another beautiful building, Paradiso's Hammam, the work of Melanie Monchot, an artist from Germany who's based in London. It's a work made in Mexico with people in public squares. The work of Kim Suja from Korea, again in the Paradiso's Hammam, a very beautiful piece that she made in Mumbai with the people who wash clothes, the untouchables, people of very low caste who do this job, washing clothes. And again, it seemed very appropriate to bring the memory of water to a place that was used as a bath for centuries. She created a beautiful installation with the videos. It was 4-screen video installation. You can see the beauty of the building. It was very important that artists respected the architecture, and they were so taken by the beauty of the buildings that they intervened very minimally to let the building speak. This is the Museum of Religion, the work of Freddie Casco from Paraguay about the times of dictatorship. Fernando Marques Penteado from Brazil. Maria Kerka, an artist from Iran. We had a lot of comments from people going to the Museum of Religion and finding a Frankenstein that looks like a religious man and a Muslim religious man praying. And of course, the idea, and this is done by an Iranian artist, we had to explain people that it wasn't a kind of European interpretation of Islam in a negative sense, but it was an Iranian speaking about the fear of Islam by the West, and how when you see this man from the back, you don't know that he's Frankenstein until you see his face. But the idea is that we have created a monster of Islam, and that was what this piece did. The work of another very important historical artist from Argentina, still alive, is 89, who won the Golden Lion in Venice, not this time, the last Venice, with works on paper and these anti-religion pieces, chessboards with saints and devils. And the performance festival that ran parallel to the Biennale, in this case, the performance by Cesar Martinez, Euros for Everyone. He made 100 little cakes with the image of 500 euro notes on them and offered them to people to eat. It seemed quite timely to offer money for people to eat in a moment when money is so scarce and there was so much talk about uncertainty. The title of the Biennale actually is Praxis, Art in Times of Uncertainty. Where do we go from now when markets are collapsing and art needs to look at itself again as something outside the commercial world? Euros for everyone. Everyone ate the euros. So yes, this is more or less the project. The idea of uncertainty, even though it wasn't in the title for the presentation here, it was very important. We wanted to reflect on what's happening with art when all these incredible boom that we lived of commercial art in the last years comes to an end, where artists are going after this. And somehow also with the title, fundamentally wanted to look back at what happens when curators are so over-empowering and biennales are all over the world trying to make statements by curators and forcing artists to fit into these ideas. We try to liberate artists from that and call it praxis, to look at the work of artists instead of imposing a theme on them. So going back to praxis, going back to, is not just informed by theory, even though theory is great. We are not saying theory is not important, but going back to the practice of artists and what artists do. And this is what we've been trying to do with this Biennale, and I hope some of you could visit it. It's open until the 27th of September. So if you have any questions about it, I think we're running out of time now. Yep.
I have one about art. How do you see the change of art now? What a role has it to play in these multi-plural, different parts now at the moment? In a way, you said back to the roots. What does it mean?
I believe that art is an opportunity given to humans to find a space for freedom. And I'm not being too idealistic here. I think that is still one of the spaces of freedom that we have left. So without instrumentalizing, we can open dialogues and see artists working as agents in society in different ways. Doesn't mean that you have to be, as an artist, acting on society in a political way, direct political way. It can be, or it can not be. It can be that you're just practicing from another point of view. But it is important to reformulate all this. And a moment of crisis is ideal for that. Because when everything sells, I mean, there's the example of China. China wasn't selling for a long time. When I was there, I was shocked to see how much is sold, how much art is sold, and how much is out there to be sold. And not much substance, and a lot of flashiness. And, you know, that happened around the world for a long time. In China, it's a very impressive phenomenon because it happened in a very short time. But going back to the roots of what are we doing with art? Why are we doing this? It's a good moment to question that. I don't know what form and shape it will take because only time will tell us, but it's a good time. No more? Fine. Yeah.
What mean roots? Go back to roots, to different. Oh, no, I don't like this. I tried.
I can't hear you if you don't use the microphone. Or speak loudly.
Means to go back to roots in different manner for each country, for each part of the world. It means different roots are all the same. Go back to roots.
Yeah, nobody can hear you now.
No.
What I mean by going to roots is an expression. Basically, it's a very general expression.
Go back to the roots. To do this in different manner for each country, or to go to the same for the whole world. No, it means go back to the different roots.
It's not to do with countries. It's to do with. It's a philosophical take on art. I think it's much more generic than that.
General.
The world is a crisis now. You know, I come from a country where crisis hit so many times that for me it's not surprising. You know, we had inflation. Prices changing 4 times a day. You know, it's not economic crisis is not something that is an end of anything. It's a beginning of something else, and new structures are created through crisis. So I think it's a general kind of philosophical idea more than for any country in particular.
I have just a last question. What is for you freedom? Is it a freedom to choose, or is it a freedom to choose your frame, or an in-between, or what is it exactly?
That's another problematic word. I mean the space that is not constrained by an end. So, you know, we're all professionals in what we do, and, you know, it's not different being a dentist to a visual artist or a musician to a lawyer. The question is how you do your work. And if you keep working in a direction that has to do with a root of what you want to do with your work, it's okay. But if you're just reacting to an external situation, then it becomes problematic. And I think when the market becomes too strong, it can be very dangerous. But I don't mean to say that artists have to be poor or outside the market. That's a romantic idea. I mean, art fairs wouldn't exist. It's not about that, obviously. You wanted to ask a question? Okay, thank you very much.